a.m., and you are now invited to listen to the Morning Watch. But before all that, the Morning Watch today is sponsored by the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs.
The report is out.
What report?
The Constitutional Reform Committee's report of recommendations.
Recommendations on what?
On how we move from a monarchy to a republic, of course.
So what's in it?
The creation of the office of president and changes to our parliament. Yes, man. It also includes a new qualification for membership in parliament. I know you want to see that one.
Read the full report at roadtorepublic.mlca.gov.jm.
We are on the road to republic.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM. Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org, and if you're overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the first watch today, the folly of threatening the Prime Minister or anyone for that matter. And in the second watch, healing the trauma from the Cherry Tree Lane massacre. For our social media question, we ask, what comforts you most during times of grief? We're asking you to share your responses on our Love 101 FM Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program, but before all of that, here's I quote.
All right, today's I quote is from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it says, "Life is a succession of lessons which must be lived to understood." Again, life is a succession of lessons which must be lived to be understood.
Okay. Good morning, Joka.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you doing, my brother?
All is well. All is well so far. How are you?
I am well. Life is a succession of what? Lessons.
Of lessons which must be lived
to
understood.
Yeah, and that means the good and the bad, the happy and the sad.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. First watch will be back after this break.
Temptations will always be with us, no matter how holy or Christian we may think we are. Things to ponder. Is temptation ever a good thing? Who causes it? Satan or God? What is temptation, and how do we know when we are being tempted? Tuesday, August 20, on The Rock, join guests Errol Bean and Pastor Luke Smith as they discuss the topic, temptation. That's The Rock, Tuesday, August 20 at 10 a.m. here on the family station, Love 101. Join the family station Love 101 for Double the Love, Saturday, August 24th, as we will be live on location in Spanish Town at the lay-by in front of the Sagicor Shopping Center from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Come spend the day with our Love 101 announcers, Jekyll Dyer, DJ Parchment, and our resident DJ, DJ Rebirth. It promises to be a fun-filled day with games, prizes, surprises, giveaways. You don't want to miss it. Double the Love, Saturday, August 24th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Spanish Town Sagicor Shopping Center, live on the family station, Love 101. Sponsored by Price Smart Jamaica. One membership, many benefits. National Housing Trust, the key to your home. Institute of International Recognized Qualifications, an alternative pathway to success. Distinction College, providing opportunities for all. Recycling Partners of Jamaica, improving recycling habits across Jamaica, and Jamaica Pentecostal Union Apostolic. To my amazing
rising sun on his wedding day. My heart is full of joy for you. I wish you a lifetime of happiness and a house full of love. Oh, and some kids would be nice. Your mommy will be the kindest, loveliest granny there ever was. Love always, Daddy. I promised him I'd read this to you one day, and here we are.
Thanks, Mommy. Your love lives on with life insurance from Sagicor. Talk to an advisor today.
I am so happy for back to school. But wow, getting back to a quiet house comes at a price, right? No one knows how to easy work for back to school. With a $15,000 gift card to help take care of your back to school expenses and a free school bag. The books aren't going to carry themselves, right? Make back to school easier and sign up for Yard and Road. Get internet at home and mobile on the go for only $5,300 plus GCT. Flow Yard and Road makes every day better. Visit our Flow store today. Conditions apply.
Tiles, and more tiles! It's the Totally Tiles sale event at Home and Things. Enjoy up to 70% off select mosaic tiles. Check out our new arrivals of elegant Spanish porcelain and stylish ceramics at unbelievably low prices. Save big on A-grade floor and wall tiles. Trendy designs, colors, and sizes. We've got it all. Plus other discounts store-wide. Catch the Totally Tiles sale event now on at Home and Things, on Rock Road and Constant Spring Road. Lots of tiles, lots of styles.
The report is out.
What report?
The Constitutional Reform Committee's report of recommendations.
Recommendations on what?
On how we move from a monarchy to a republic, of course.
So what's in it?
The creation of the office of president and changes to our parliament. Yes, man. It also includes a new qualification for membership in parliament. I know you want to see that one.
Read the full report at roadtorepublic.nlca.gov.jm.
We are on the road to republic.
Ready to experience 6 times more freshness in your clothes? Try Downy Scent Beads. Its fragrance is so amazing, you have to sniff it to believe it. Try Downy Scent Beads today. 6 times more freshness versus using detergent alone.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Now, all we could see were his eyes peeking through the mask. The voice issuing a threat to Prime Minister Holness and his wife. And within days, the report was that he was caught. So what is the nature of such threats? And of course, what are the legal repercussions? Well, to answer these and other related questions, we have joining us so far, Mr. Peter Champagny, KC, JP, attorney at law. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Toussaint, and good morning to your listeners, and thanks for having me on your program this morning.
Yes, thanks for joining us. Now, Mr. Champagny, in a nutshell, what is the law of the land in regards to threatening the Prime Minister? And is there a difference if others are also threatened?
Well, first of all, the law does not make any distinction insofar as a threat is concerned to the particular individual, be it a Prime Minister or an ordinary citizen of Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain ingredients that would constitute a threat, technically known as an assault, and what an important feature or ingredient in relation to that is that the person to whom the threat is directed must himself or herself be in fear of that particular threat. So you will realize right off that from that perspective alone, in terms of that sole ingredient, it can be argued that the Prime Minister, so far removed from the situation, would not have himself been in fear in terms of the threat. Also, it is the possibility, another ingredient, the possibility or the probability of that being carried out, and you'd have to take into account the proximity of the individuals when the threat is issued and so on. But more important is the first ingredient that I said. And it would seem to me that there would be some issues in terms of establishing a case like that, where to go before the court in terms of getting a conviction. This, however, must not be taken as a license to do as you will, as this individual did. And the next port of call, in my view, would possibly be the Cybercrimes Act that I think was refined in 2015, I think Section 12 in specifically, where it has to do with inciting persons to commit crimes against other persons or person. And again, this is an area that could be examined, but again, there may be some issues with that. And therefore, at the end of the day, it is my respectful view by way of a recommendation. And I think the Honorable Prime Minister, in fact, some time ago or recently, made reference to it, that we need to have some kind of legislation that governs the use of social media. Very often persons abuse it in terms of its usage by issuing these kinds of threats, by spreading news that are false that can cause panic and harm. Very often they make reference to particular individuals and damage their reputation, and they hide this behind this veil of, secrecy, or, you can't tell exactly who they are. And in other jurisdictions, you have laws that govern the usage of social media platforms. So I think, with this said, that we may want to have a serious examination as to, do we make the host of social media platforms accountable? Do we have basic laws in relation to, what kind of communication you broadcast? And of course, we have to balance this against the right to freedom of speech. So all in all, I think that we really need to re-examine how we operate on these platforms. But certainly, the behavior of this particular individual is not to be supported. It is wrong. As to whether or not, technically speaking, it could constitute a threat, that's another matter. But it ought not to be encouraged.
Yes, and I'm going back there because if I heard you correctly, the person on the other end of the alleged threat must be in fear of that threat.
Yes.
And the possibility of that threat being carried out.
Yes,
correct.
Correct.
So if those two things are not there, is it that it is not a violation of the law?
Technically speaking, it would not, especially the first element. So if there's a statement that were to be collected, and I don't want to narrow it to the Prime Minister, if let us say an ordinary individual, if a statement were to be collected and the statement of that complainant or that person who's the subject of the fear were to say, well, I was in fear when I got this news and the person was in front of me and I saw that he could have carried out the threat without any preconditions, then it would be an offense. The question in this particular situation that we're discussing is whether or not, given the Prime Minister's position in terms of security and so on, and this broadcast, which is possibly remote from where he was at the material time, the question is whether or not it could be satisfy the various factors that would lead to one saying that it's an offense.
Isn't it a bit subjective, though, Mr. Champagne?
It is
the person must be in fear of that threat.
Yes, the person must be in fear.
So if the person is not in fear, the person...
It's not a threat. It's not a threat. So for instance, you may come up to me and say, I'm going to use this paper clip and do harm to you. Right? I look at the paper clip, I look at you weigh 25 pounds. I'm just giving an example, and I weigh 150 pounds and I'm, well built and so on, more than able to defend myself. I'm not in fear of you. Yes, it's a threat, but I would have to be in fear. So the common and the classical definition or example that is often used, there was a case hundreds of years ago where someone said, if it weren't at a particular time, I would use my sword and cause harm to you. But it was conditional. If it weren't a particular time, and it wasn't that particular time. So even though the person was in fear at that time and the person was in front of the person with the sword, the court found that, it did not constitute a threat because it was conditional upon it being a particular time.
Interesting.
So it is not straightforward and a simple issue as is being made out by some persons.
Tell you what, though, Mr. Champagne, we're up on a break. Yes. All right, we'll be right back.
Yes.
the station Love 101 for Double the Love, Saturday, August 24th, as we the Jamaica Pentecostal Union Apostolic.
Here is your opportunity to connect with someone who will listen, pray, and give guidance. It's the Ministry of Counseling and Prayer of the Edgewater Baptist Church. Please call 876-220-6474 or 876-332-7956. Weekdays between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Please talk to someone if you're finding it particularly challenging to cope during this period of crisis. Someone is waiting for your call. Please reach out today, 876-220-6474 or 876-332-7956. It's the telephone counseling and prayer ministry of the Edgewater Baptist Church. A reminder that somebody cares. Endorsed by Love 101.
When I come to the end of myself, Father, carry me.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and in this the first watch. We are discussing the folly of threatening the Prime Minister or anyone for that matter. In so doing, we have online Mr. Peter Champagne, Casey, attorney at law, JP. Before the break, Mr. Champagne, I think you had a few more thoughts on the first question.
Yes, just to say again, to reiterate that, as I said, the person to whom this threat is directed must be in fear of that threat. And secondly, the person who is making the threat must have the ability to carry it out. So, for instance, if you are threatening me and I am in a locked room that is burglar barred and all of that, and you're threatening me on the outside, that I'm going to come in and do you harm, and you don't have a key to open the burglar bars or the grills, then you would not be capable of carrying it out if it was going to be physical harm. So these are, the technical aspects of it in terms of threats. Which is referred to as an assault in law, technically speaking. And as I said before, this must not be an excuse or a license, really, to do this in the name of freedom of expression and free speech.
Right.
To whom much is given, much is expected, and one has to be mindful of all of those factors when treating with a situation such as this.
Happy you mentioned about freedom of expression and speech, because where do we draw the line? What about those who argue that let the man run up his mouth? I mean, man free for talk. I mean, how do we determine where that line has been crossed?
Well, you determine it by the existence of our legislation here. The existence of our legislation in relation to the Cyber Crimes Act. Inciting to do violence by way of broadcast, by electronic means, and as I said, the elements in terms of threat. If it were a situation where he's being critical of the Prime Minister in terms of his policies and being critical in terms of the handling of the crime situation, that, to my mind, falls squarely within the right to freedom of expression and freedom of speech. But we can't have a situation where one individual is, in the name of the freedom of expression or freedom of speech, seeking to do harm or threaten harm to another individual. Democracy really, is not about the protection of the rights of the majority, but it's really the protection of the rights of the minority who are most vulnerable. And I think that sometimes that particular point is lost on many persons.
What about jest, though? The person is just joking, not serious.
Yes.
Humor.
Well, as I said before, an essential ingredient must be, when you look at the circumstances objectively, is this individual able to carry out the threat? So if the person is not himself able to carry out the threat, and I will just give an example. Let us say that he has a cardboard knife, and he's saying, I'm going to use this and cause harm to John Brown, and it's in jest, it's a skit, or what as the case may be. Then clearly that would not, in my mind, qualify as a threat in terms of arriving at a conviction in court. Because you will note, and I'll say this, I don't know if in the past we have had instances like these, and the persons are apprehended that they actually go to court and plead guilty and are sentenced. And if that is so, I would want to challenge that, because if the ingredients are not there, then surely it would not be the proper thing in terms of the process. And so I think it has often stopped short of, the person being confronted by the police and an apology is given, and that's the end of the matter. And again, I have some issues with that, because if the offense is not there, then that kind of coercion and, public shame in terms of naming the person and having that being done, there may be issues with that. But again, I want to emphasize that this is not a excuse. It's not an excuse to do this kind of thing, because to my mind, it is what may be legally wrong or legally correct may be morally wrong, and that is the dilemma that we're in this situation. And
again, for the record, it doesn't matter whether it's a prime minister, a government official, members of the security force, an average citizen. It doesn't matter. It goes across the board.
It matters not. We are equal under the law. We are supposed to be equal under the law. And the basic common law principles in law apply irrespective of who the individual is.
There are those who, let me just say it for what it's worth, are wondering if when the Prime Minister had said, in regards to those who committed the gruesome act in Clarendon, that they must either meet a judge or meet their maker, would that constitute a threat?
That's a provocative question, but let me answer it quite frankly. I did not hear the exact speech of the Prime Minister in that regard.
Yeah, I was just quoting a while ago, by the way, from the newspaper.
I know, but what I would say, with the greatest of respect, I do not necessarily believe that was an appropriate comment. If it was said in the context of, listen, you must either be prepared to meet a judge or meet your maker if you seek to engage the police when they seek to apprehend you, then to my mind that would be a perfectly acceptable comment. But if you are putting it in the context without any qualifications, as I did, and mind you, I have not heard, I didn't hear, I didn't see when that was done, then that would be inappropriate. It would not, in my view, constitute a threat, because, as I said, the person who is making the statement under scrutiny must be able to be in a position to carry it out. The person on the other end must be in fear, and these are elements that one would have to examine. But in terms of the overall comment without qualification, I am uncomfortable with that.
So getting back to the initial video, is it that the Prime Minister or Mrs. Holness would have needed to declare to the authorities, the police, that we feel threatened by this, we are fearful by what was said, and we believe that there's a possibility that he could carry it out before the police would seek to apprehend this individual?
And not only that, but the capability of the person carrying it out would have to be established, that the person is well capable of doing so. And one may argue on behalf of the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's wife that, well, what happened in Cherry Lane or in Clarendon, clearly, you don't know if this is the same person, so you would have been in fear. You don't know. Even though you have close security protection officers, that this will be sufficient. So the point is that the police would have had to have done some kind of investigation to satisfy the elements in terms of making up the offense.
No, but would what I'm driving at, would the Prime Minister and his wife have needed to have made a statement in that regard before the police would seek to apprehend this individual?
Well, in most, if not all, criminal investigations that lead to a situation where an individual is charged, the basis of it is a complaint and giving a written statement to the police.
So we can assume that was done, and if not, why would they be looking for him then?
Well, if it was done, and the police were of the view that this is a case that may point in the direction of that in terms of satisfying the ingredient, they would be all within their rights to proffer charges in relation to the individual.
Right.
Now, if it's not done, and the police are acting in the way that they did, then they may say, well, we would want to arrest and then secure the statement. I mean, again, that is not the proper way, because oftentimes you hear about police arresting and then investigating after. And certainly that is not something to be supported at all. But the point is that there would have to have been a statement. Without a statement it on file in terms of laying a charge, it would be an exercise in futility in my mind, and a breach of the person's constitutional rights.
What are the penalties, Mr. Champagne, for this?
It would depend. It would depend on a number of factors, whether or not the person has a record in terms of a previous conviction, the age of the person, how strong how egregious was the offense, and all of that. And in those circumstances, I will tell you, ordinarily, a threat, normally it's a fine or, a probationary period that is imposed.
Any figure you can tell us? Any figure? Any figures in terms of the fine?
No, a nominal amount, I would say, because threats are normally prosecuted, and I think the listeners, it's important for us to hear this. Threats are normally prosecuted in the lay magistrate's court. So, in other words, the jurisdiction there in terms of penalties and so on they're quite limited. So it is not something that would be onerous in terms of penalty. But at the same time, I don't want the impression to be created that, it would be a slap on the wrist. Not necessarily. It would depend on the person's own antecedents in the way of history in terms of criminal conduct and how egregious the act was. So, for example, in this instance, this national broadcast, if you will, if you want to call it that, because social media is so accessible to all, and it was done, nationally.
Yes.
That, to my mind, would have been a major aggravating feature in terms of how you would treat an offender like this.
Well, I'm happy you mentioned about social media, because as we wrap up our discussion, generally speaking, what wise words of advice would you give to those who may be thinking of using social media, even closely related to this incident?
A word to the wise is that it is wrong, and you have to be responsible. As I said before, to whom much is given, much is expected. And the police may not necessarily be correct in terms of their approach if it is they didn't have a statement from the complainant, but that does not preclude them from seeking you out and arresting you and seeking to initiate a process. So one must exercise their rights, freedom of expression, freedom of speech, responsibly. And this certainly by no means would qualify as responsible conduct. And it is to be condemned in the strongest possible term.
Well said. Thank you so very much, Mr. Peter Champagne. Very interesting and informative discussion. Have a safe and good day.
Thank you, and to you and your listeners.
Thanks. Listeners, the Morning Watch will return in just a moment.
The time by Jam Bank is
7:30 a.m.
I am Megan Topple, Olympic 100-meter hurdles bronze medalist. At 5'1", I've always been asked, how you manage to clear the hurdles so easily? Truth is, I've been overcoming hurdles all my life. How? Preparation. So I always prepare for every hurdle in life. And that's why I drink True Shake. With True Shake, I get 9 grams of protein and 24 essential vitamins. I may be short, but with True Shake, I am not short of anything.
Come on, True Shake and go!
The Jamaica Pentecostal Union Apostolic Fall 2024-2025 PEP scholarship applications are now open, valued at $30,000 Jamaican dollars. Application deadline Saturday, August 24, 2024. Candidate must be a female between the ages of 11 and 13 who was successful in the recent PEP exam. Must be an active Sunday school student of an apostolic church and demonstrate the need for financial aid. Applicants cannot be related to any working committee members. For more information, visit the Jamaica Pentecostal Apostolic Union's website and Love 101's social media platforms.
The report is out.
What report?
The Constitutional Reform Committee's report of recommendations.
Recommendations on what?
On how we move from a monarchy to a republic, of course.
So what's in it?
The creation of the office of president and changes to our parliament. Yes, man. It also includes a new qualification for membership in parliament. I know you want to see that one.
Read the full report at roadtorepublic.mlca.gov.jm.
We are on the road to republic.
Febreze. Imagine getting home after a long day and it smells so amazing that it makes you smile. Try Febreze Plugs, an air freshener that delivers continuous scent for up to 50 days when you plug it in low mode. Indulge in wonderful scents for weeks with Febreze. La 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 la.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. First of all, in the Gleaner, Crawford says most schools will not be ready for September. Also in the Gleaner, Jamaican black castor oil market poised for expansion. In the Observer, teachers clash, war of words erupts at JTA conference over salary agreement suit. And also in the Observer, 70-year-old among 5 charged in 12 billion drug bust. In Loop News, how come? JPS seeks to explain shocking spike in light bills. And also in the Loop News, Chang assures that prisoners are being monitored amid fears. Those are some of the major stories and highlights in our newspapers. Coming up next, we'll read some of the feedback from our social media question. What comforts you most during times of grief? What comforts you most during times of grief? We're asking you to leave a comment on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. We'll be right back.
Join the family station Love 101 for Double the Love, Saturday, August 24, as we will be live on location in Spanish Town at the lay-by in front of the Sagicor Shopping Center from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Come spend the day with our Love 101 announcers, Joker Dyer, DJ Parchment, and our resident DJ, DJ Rebirth. It promises to be a fun-filled day with games, prizes, surprises, giveaways. You don't want to miss it. Double the Love, Saturday, August 24 from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Spanish Town Sagicor Shopping Center, live on the family station Love 101. Sponsored by Price Smart Jamaica. One membership, many benefits. National Housing Trust, the key to your home. Institute of International Recognized Qualifications, an alternative pathway to success. Distinction College, providing opportunities for all. Recycling Partners of Jamaica, improving recycling habits across Jamaica. And Jamaica Pentecostal Union Apostolic. Temptations will always be with us, no matter how holy or Christian we may think we are. Things to ponder. Is temptation ever a good thing? Who causes it? Satan or God? What is temptation and how do we know when we are being tempted? Tuesday, August 20, on The Rock, join guests Errol Bean and Pastor Luke Smith as they discuss the topic, temptation. That's The Rock, Tuesday, August 20 at 10 a.m. here on the family station, Love One.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. And as we segue into the second watch, most of us could never imagine our household and the households of multiple neighbors losing family members in one tragic, senseless, unexpected sweep. And I hope we never do in reality. But it does happen. And it did happen to a community in Clarendon known as Cherry Tree Lane. When a community is plunged into trauma and grief, what does it do to heal and to recover? Well, to talk about this and other related issues, we have joining us Mr. Andre Allen Casey, counseling psychologist, as well as the Reverend Glendon Powell, pastor of the Flankers Open Bible Church. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Yes.
Morning, sir.
Yes, morning, Reverend Powell. Yes. Morning, Brother Allen Casey.
I want to correct, I am not the pastor of the Flankers Open Bible Church. I'm the pastor of the Unity Hall Open Bible Church.
Unity Hall, okay. Thank you very much for that correction, Reverend Powell. How both of you doing? Long time no see.
Hey, doing good, you know. Doing great.
Okay.
Doing very well, my friend.
Yes. Good to have you both. All right, Mr. Allen Casey, beginning with you. What really is trauma, and what are its main causes or contributors?
Well, trauma has everything to do with the fact that your regular life and living has been disrupted by a traumatic event, be it like a death, earthquake, anything that speaks to something that is from the standpoint of bringing any kind of massive change into your life and living, and especially where on a whole the society says has adjudicated that event as something that is traumatic. So that in a nutshell speaks to what trauma looks like, and the effects of it is how it has impacted your daily life and living, in that where you go, how you think, intrusive thoughts and such the likes, where you can even develop what is called PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, as a result of the trauma that you would have experienced or experiencing.
And some of the main causes?
Well, like I said, it could death, war, earthquake. All of these things are causes to trauma. Even if you were in a car accident, for that matter,
right,
and you have survived it, that can be a traumatic episode or event, I should state.
And a break into your house and all of that.
That's right.
Yeah. Reverend Powell, what can you tell us, some of the experiences you have had in doing pastoral ministry in traumatic situations, perhaps even similar to that which exists in Cherry Tree Lane?
It is a frightening experience for anyone who experiences anything that is traumatic. One has to remember that based on how God made us up as individuals, we are a tripartite being, and anything that affects our emotion
Mm.
brings, you know, it causes us to become nervous, panicky, and so forth. So anything that happens outside of anything that is comfortable for us, it brings us into a difficult position.
And your experiences as a pastor for many years?
Yeah.
Both in Frankers and Unity Hall now?
Right. I can tell you, sometimes when you go on a scene, I remember one evening we were in a board meeting, and when I started a barrage of gunshots being fired, and we were still composed having the board meeting. But after a while, it seems as if the thing was so close to us. So I had to say to the board, let's get flat. And we had to get flat. And right after us getting flat, I heard my door knock, the office door knock. When I opened the door and went outside, it was one of my oldest members came and said, Rev, I felt that somebody for me died. Something happened to somebody for me. And I put my arms around her and I walked her down into the community. When I walked down into the community, only to find out that 3 persons were murdered. 3 persons were murdered, and including those 3 persons is a son of this woman. And so I had to take her on. I had to, just pour love on her. I just had to be there to encourage, to counsel, to pray, just to get her, back to normal. Yes, it was very dramatic.
Right, and she was going through trauma, and so were you.
Yes.
Mr. Alan Casey, major signs and symptoms, and are there some major red flags that we need to bear in mind when we talk about trauma?
Well, yes. What the community there basically experience is community grief. And it was quite traumatic for them, but hypervigilance is one of those things that one can expect.
Break that down. What's that?
Well, in other words, for them to congregate again, they're not going to readily do so and playing the games outside, or just to go to the shop, for crying out loud. They're going to be looking around to see if they hear any kind of loud noise, it is going to trigger them. That's what I mean by hypervigilance.
Okay.
Appetite lost, even weight gain, because you find that a lot of folks are probably going to want to stay indoors more and eat a lot of junk food possibly, or just don't feel like eating because they are fearful of their own lives. Sleep difficulties is going to interfere with them. Restlessness, of course, crying, vulnerability, shortness of breath, anxiety, not to mention anxiety. Emptiness, a feeling of emptiness, I should say, difficulty concentrating, anger, guilt, guilt. Even let me say this one here, where there is where they would have intrusive thoughts, and where they are just thinking about the event and what could have happened to them if they were there. And so that is the kind of we're talking about even the trauma. That's the kind of traumatic experiences and feelings that they will be having, even at this point in time.
Yeah. Okay. We're drawing near to a break. I want us to drill down a little bit more into some of those things you mentioned a while ago. We'll be right back.
Finish it on the beginner. Follow the one with the pop, that are the winner. Shop on supermarkets, everybody selling.
Sardines, follow the better flavor.
The time is
7:45.
So you think all toilet paper is the same? So you think all toilet paper is the same?
Yeah, basically, tissue is tissue.
You obviously never experienced the domino effect then.
No, what not? Feel this. Wow, that is soft.
Not just soft. Domino toilet paper is also super strong and ultra absorbent. Basically, you're getting comfort where you need it most.
So yeah, you want to give me this one, right? Domino toilet paper. Experience the domino effect and get softness all around you. Available at retail stores near you. To my amazing son on his wedding day, my heart is full of joy for you. I wish you a lifetime of happiness and a house full of love. Oh, and some kids would be nice. Your mommy will be the kindest, loveliest granny there ever was. Love always, Daddy. I promised him I'd read this to you one day, and here we are.
Thanks, Mommy. Your love lives on with life insurance from Sagicor. Talk to an advisor today.
Keep your family in peak condition. Farmer Wormhole suspension. Just one dose. It's an easy decision. Farmer Wormhole suspension.
Protect your family from intestinal worms with Farmer Wormhole. Get the entire household to peak condition just in time for back to school. With just a single dose, Farmer Wormhole effectively eliminates worm infestations in all stages, making it the hassle-free solution for both kids and adults.
Just one dose is an easy decision. Farmer Wormhole suspension.
Choose Farmer Wormhole for your entire family. Distributed by Massive Distribution.
I love doing my own thing, so to have to live by my landlady rules, kind of rough. I can only park near the front gate to the right of the mango tree, but not on the lawn. Well, I fulfill two dreams with one Jane Bank savings plan. Now I buy my dream home and I live by my own rules.
Stop wishing you could. With your Jane Bank savings, you absolutely can. Jane Bank will help you find a way.
The report is out.
What report?
The Constitutional Reform Committee's report of recommendations.
Recommendations on what?
On how we move from a monarchy to a republic, of course.
So what's in it?
The creation of the office of president and changes to our parliament. Yes, man. It also includes a new qualification for membership in parliament. I know you want to see that one.
Read the full report at roadtorepublic.mlca.gov.jm.
We are on the road to republic.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. In this, the second watch, we're looking on the whole matter of healing the trauma from the Cherry Tree Lane massacre. In so doing, we have online the Reverend Glendon Powell, pastor of Unity Hall Open Bible Church, and Mr. Andre Allen Casey, counseling psychologist. Before the break, Mr. Allen Casey, I think he had mentioned as one of the major signs and symptoms guilt. Could you say more about that? I mean, in the Cherry Tree Lane incident, why would the family members and neighbors experience guilt in that regard?
Okay, guilt here. So you have different types of guilt. You have what is called anticipatory guilt, reactional guilt, and existential guilt. Guilt here, from the standpoint now, it could be reactional in that here it is that could I have done more to bring about the safety of my family or the persons that have passed. So we don't know what kind of context somebody who is feeling guilty could feel or having, for that matter. Or the guilt could also be as a result of the fact that here it is that not only could I have done more, but here it is that I am feeling guilty about an event that has happened and that I have not yet healed from. And so now I am going through guilt because the kind of relationship that I had with the past one, I do not have closure with it is concerned. And now that I know I'm experiencing another death of a friend, suppose somebody there that possibly had died or even got shot for that matter, and is still healing from that, that could have been me, or that person could have died, and I'm not in a very healthy relationship with that person. So this is the different ways in which a person could feel guilty.
Okay, and some people mention about survivor's guilt and all of that.
And so there we have it too.
Yeah, yeah. Reverend Powell, when tragedies and traumatic events like the massacre occur, persons tend to ask, where was God?
All right.
How could God
Before we
have
get to
allowed
that, I want to add
it to
some
happen?
what Mr. Casey said in terms of the signs to look for. You know, at this particular time, you're going to see a lot of sadness. Anger is going to be big. Silence. Persons are going to just not wanting to talk. Persons are going to be withdrawn. And we are going to find that persons are also going to become suspicious. Aggressiveness is another sign that we have to look for, because person will easily get off, you know, and we also have to look at the lack of trust. Persons are not going to be very trusting at a particular time.
Yes.
So repeat the question now. And
Yeah, right. Thank you. Thanks for adding those signs, symptoms. But I was just saying that when events like this happen, like that massacre, persons tend to ask, where was God and how could God have allowed it to happen to innocent persons, including that same 7-year-old boy? What's your response to those people?
All right. The response is, I remember we had a very tragic situation at the Mount Salem Open Bible Church some years ago when one of their prized deacon was shot and killed, a very honorable man.
Yes.
He was brutally slain.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to at that time I was the regional superintendent, and I went to bring cheer to the bring some kind of encouragement to the church family. And a very notable person from the congregation, somebody who was a counselor herself, asked me the question, where was God?
Mm.
And I said to her, God was at the same place when Jesus Christ was crucified on the cross, when his begotten son, only begotten son, was crucified on a rugged cross. He was right there. Now, one other thing about it, people tend to blame God in situations like these. But one we must remember is that God has given us what I would call the designer's, the manufacturer's manual, which is the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
God says, thou shalt not kill. God says we should love our neighbor as we love ourselves. We should do good unto each other. We should bless each other. We must, it is all there in the Word of God. He tells us that how we ought to treat each other. Now, when we go against the grain of the Word of God, when we go against the biblical script, and we do things and we hurt each other, because the Bible tells us that we are to be our brothers and sisters' keeper, right? We are, when the first murder was committed in the book of Genesis, where Cain killed his brother Abel. Note what God said. God said, where is thy brother? He asked a question, am I my brother's keeper? Notice the response of the Lord. He says, thy brother's blood is crying out from the ground to me.
Mm.
I want to say, let us not put any blame on God. Where was God? That we just need to go back to the biblical script and see how much we have removed ourselves away from the very principles that God has put in place so that we would be protected, that we would be safe, that would be loved and guided by. And so I just want to say, it's sad that this has happened, but our society today is plagued by dysfunctional males and females because they have moved away from the designer's manual, the Bible.
Yeah. Mr. Alan Casey, I don't know if you want to say anything in addition to what was said by Rev a while ago, but what roles do demographics like age and gender play in dealing with traumatic occurrences?
Well, just to quickly, possibly, I don't know if I can add to what he stated. I think he did a marvelous job.
Yes.
But normally when folks are going through grief of this nature, or any kind of grief, a part of the anger, a part of the 5 or so stages of grief, anger is one of those things. And anger says, I need to look for somebody to blame. And so oftentimes folks turn and say, I'm going to blame the government, I'm going to blame God, I'm going to blame criminality, so they're always looking for someone to blame. So this is almost a natural response. I did say almost, but unfortunately, the same persons that are blaming God is also asking God to help them. So I'm just saying here, at some stage, we have to recognize that blaming God is not the answer. We see where that happens, where Job is concerned. Job was saying, why me? Why this had to happen to me? And started to question God. And God says, where were you when I was forming the earth and settled the boundaries? So at some stage, there's a passage in Revelation that says, great and marvelous are your deeds, Lord God Almighty, just and true are your ways, King of the ages. And so the truth is, understanding who God is and how he operates and how he functions, it is on our part to always remain committed and faithful to him, and not allow our own crisis to use our own crisis against him, rather. Let me say it that way.
Yes.
Okay.
So the demographics of it now, the age and gender, is there a difference in how persons process these things?
Somewhat, and I said somewhat because for the age, let's say, for example, children. A lot of times, children do not understand what is happening, and so it creates a kind of fear where they are concerned, and it interferes with the structure and the stability that they are looking for. And so, as a result of that, they need to be reminded that, hey, you can feel safe again. You can function again. You can depend on us. And so that is one of the major things that happens to our children. And so we have to recreate in them a safe space and place for them to restore a certain level of functionality. That is where children are concerned. Now, in terms of adults, though, definitely it also happens to adults. So it's really not any much different. It's just that adults are better able to manage it because they understand what has happened. They, talking about Bible, the Bible said that it repented God that he had made man. For every inclination of his heart was only evil continually. And so one of the things that we have to come to understand is to recognize that our thinking and revenge and that kind of mindset, unfortunately, continue to plague us as human beings. And we have to do our part to continue to be able to model love, or to be an example of love, to teach people how to live with each other. And so even if you feel hurt, you do not have to give hurt. That's all I'm also saying, that you can do the right thing. A person's bad behavior should not dictate your response.
Revenge
You
is not the answer.
should be prepared to do the right thing in spite of and not because of.
Yes. Okay, gentlemen, we are out of time. Thank you so very much for joining us, and we continue to pray for the families and residents within Cherry Tree Lane. Thanks for joining us. Have a safe day, gentlemen.
Pleasure.
Okay, my brother. Bless you.
Thank you, listeners, for being with us. Join us again tomorrow as we continue to set the stage for discussion of topical and controversial issues. For information or get copies of this program, please call our production department at 876-968-9596-7. This, of course, has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and our guests. I am Dylan Toussaint, and you're back to Love in the Morning with Jakal Dyer.
Ministry of Health and Wellness works to ensure the provision of quality health services and promotes healthy lifestyles and environmental practices for all Jamaicans. The time by the Ministry of Health and Wellness is
8 a.m. and you are now invited to listen to a repeat